Hey, what up, Raptors family? It's your boy, the Scholar Baller, and welcome to episode 20 of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. It's your host who knows the most. All right, it's been a long time, it's been over 6 months, but we're here and we're ready to do it again. Um, so right, I'm gonna get right to it right off the bat. We got Masai and his departure from the Toronto Raptors. The quick question, how do I feel about that departure? I'm gonna be honest. I feel melancholy, I feel sad. I feel as though as a fan base we've watched a man dedicate his time and effort into building up this franchise. I, in 2013 is when he took over as the general manager of the Toronto Raptors, and he eventually did work his way up to being the, I believe it was the vice president of the Toronto Raptors. So definitely someone who, um, you know, got it out the mud, from the motherland, Africa, right? Got it out the mud, came to Canada and like made something of himself, made the Raptors into a championship franchise. Um, I saw an infographic when around the time that Masai took over the Raptors, and these are approximates, by the way, but the Raptors were worth roughly $405 million as a franchise, uh, to where they are today at 4.4 billion, right? And a huge part of that is the lore that comes with the winning culture that was established by Masai Ujiri. So big ups to him, and he definitely will be missed. Um, yeah, I gotta say though, I think, I'm definitely pointing out the obvious. Most Raptors fans, most people in the city, we saw that coming with regards to Masai being fired. Uh, Many of you who are in the know, Bell, many years ago, they used to be the majority shareholders and the majority owners of the Toronto Raptors. And then it became Rogers and Bell as co-majority shareholders for MLSE, which is the parent company of the Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto FC. Um, I believe Toronto Argonauts is also in there as well. I don't really follow them like that much, but definitely, the big ones, the Raptors and the Leafs. And Rogers recently became the majority shareholder. I don't follow baseball too much, but I definitely heard the sentiment from Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays has pretty much, you know, since like 2000, how long ago, or 19, how long ago, however long ago it was. The Blue Jays have been owned by Rogers Communications, and they are notoriously cheap. I mean, frugal. Let me use my, politically correct language. They are notoriously frugal as a ownership group. Um, Rogers as a ownership group is known for the business side of things, crunching numbers and just making sure that sales are up, merchandising is up, brand awareness is up. And if the team wins, they win. If they don't, they don't. And I just feel appalled that that culture has now officially seeped its way into the Raptors. Um, Not the happiest camper about that. Uh, One good thing that's still really makes me feel comfortable is that Bobby Webster's still around. Bobby Webster, just to bring us up to speed here, Bobby Webster, the GM of the Toronto Raptors, when Masai got promoted to vice president, Bobby Webster really took that hands-on role and really became the general manager of the Toronto Raptors. So he's been the GM for the past few years. He's just been doing his thing. Nonetheless, it's really one of those situations where with Bobby Webster, I hope he is able to hold on to this job. And I think most Raptors fans are feeling that as well, just because we want some degree of familiarity. Um, we don't want the corporate figureheads and that corporate figurehead culture to really seep in and take over this franchise. We don't want a bunch of guys in suits who are simply worried about their return on investment or their ROI. I don't think that that spells good for the fan base. I don't think that spells good for the players. I don't think that spells good for all of the would-be proponents that come under the umbrella of basketball in Canada. We are the Toronto Raptors, they are the only Canadian franchise in the NBA. And we don't want a scenario where it's just looked at as, is the money flowing through? Um, we are not the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, with all due respect, the Leafs have been losing for a very long time. That fan base has been supporting them for a very long time. But Raptors fans, we're built different. We're cut from a different cloth. And at the end of the day, we want to see a winning team. We want to see a winning team. We don't want to see corporate culture. So I'm just getting that out the way right now. Hell to the no on the corporate culture. Bobby Webster, fight for that job. Like real talk. There's a lot of hopes riding on you holding that job down. Nonetheless, I know Masai Ujiri was definitely involved with the draft pick, as per as per reports, but ultimately, I think it's surmisable to say that due to Masai's departure, it's become clear that Webster should really be seen as the one who was given the steering wheel around who to draft. Um, and I'm not going to attempt to rewrite history. In previous podcast episodes, I voiced my opinion. I definitely wanted the Raptors to draft in a position-oriented way. In other words, I wanted the Raptors to draft Kaman Maluach. That's who I wanted the Raptors to draft. I said it. I believe it was at the beginning of this year, or maybe even I can't remember if it was two podcast episodes ago. It's been so long, but I wanted them to draft Kaman Maluach. And this is not just hoops for hype. I kept up with Duke pretty much all season long. Watching Cooper Flag, Con Knipple, Kaman Maluach, and I knew that Con Knipple. First of all, Con Knipple, I like his game. I think he's a decent player, but I wasn't really interested in him in relation to the Raptors. I just thought we have enough wing players as it is, and with Con Knipple, he could be a hit or miss type of guy, right? Best of luck to him, but he could be a hit or miss type of guy. When it comes to Cooper Flag, uh, of course I wanted Cooper Flag. I'm not gonna lie, man. You know, that boy can ball. I don't care what anybody says. Until I am proven wrong on an NBA level, I'm telling you right now, yo, that boy can ball, man. So Cooper Flag, you know, he's definitely somebody I wanted, but I also knew that it was unrealistic. And quick little side note before I talk about Watch, given that whole fiasco with the Dallas Mavericks, I think everybody understood Nico Harrison's assignment when the draft lottery took place, and I'll just leave it at that. If you know, you know. But yeah, I think we understood his assignment once the Mavericks got the first overall pick. And I will just leave it at that. Going back to the Raptors, though, I knew following many of the mock drafts out there that Kaman Maluwatch was likely going to be available at number 9. And sure enough, you know, number 9, with the number 9th pick, he was still on the board. So I was almost so certain that he was going to get selected. And he didn't get selected. We got somebody else. I'll talk about that someone else in a few moments. But him not getting selected, that really bothered me in the sense that I was just thinking about like, yo, what are you guys doing? Obviously, I like Jakob Pertl. I'm glad we re-signed him. I think he's the perfect re-signing. But I was also just thinking about the future and the future of this franchise, and I thought, yo, like, we need a big. Bigs are hard to come by, and this guy just fell right into our lap, and it just seemed like we just passed him up. I can kind of see why. Um, Me personally, I think if Masai was still at the helm, I'm willing to believe that we probably would have drafted Kaman. But him being on his way out, I personally believe influenced that draft pick to being Colin Murray Boyles. Now, on to Colin Murray Boyles. I don't know how to fully feel about him yet. When I look at Colin Murray Boyles, uh, and again, I didn't, admittedly, I didn't even follow South Carolina nearly enough. I think I saw more South Carolina men's basketball last collegiate season. So the 2024 collegiate season, I saw more of North Carolina then than I saw of them this year. So I didn't really follow them like that. So when I heard like Colin Murray Boyles, like, admittedly, I had to go look this guy up and just binge watch some footage. So my perspective on him is clearly riddled with that bias. Like I didn't follow him like I followed Kaman, but you know, to get to those player comps, when I see Colin Murray Boyles, I basically see a bigger, lankier Josh Hart, Marcus Smart, Draymond Green amalgam, right? To me, he's an amalgam of those players defensively. Uh, and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but I do think that a part of me just wonders where we're going with this. Is he being brought in to replace somebody on the starting lineup? Probably not. Probably not. It's probably me being a little melodramatic with that line of questioning. It's probably not being brought in to replace somebody on the starting lineup. But at the end of the day, with Colin Murray Boyles, I just feel as though he's gonna want to start, and he's gonna and it's not there's what the rookies want, there's what the coaches want, but to me, that reaction of being drafted by the Toronto Raptors, that reaction was like oh man, like I'm gonna have to really work for this. My speculation is obviously I think he's very happy to be in the NBA. He's worked his entire life to be in the NBA, but I think he wanted a situation where he could come in and get a starting spot. And the Raptors situation right now, it ain't looking it ain't looking like he's definitely not a point guard and he's definitely not a center, right? Colin Murray Boyles definitely is not those things. He's definitely not a two guard. He would get crushed on those matchups. If you put him out there like laterally, I don't think his lateral quickness is quick enough to keep up with a lot of two guards. So realistically, on an NBA level, the positions that are left available are the four and the three. He's not starting over Brandon Ingram, and he's not starting over Scotty Barnes. So my thing is this can go my way or it can go the highway. And what I mean by that is, on one hand, he could have this mentality of, I don't like where I'm situated in the rotation, so I'm going to overcome these obstacles. Or on the other hand, it could go the other way where it's like, I don't like where I'm situated in the rotation. I don't like this team. I'm going to start to check out. So that's probably my biggest worry about him as a draft pick. So I'm not completely sold on him yet. Um, I do like the defensive potential, but not completely sold on him yet. Moving on to the second round. Somebody who I really appreciated the Raptors drafting in the second round is Elijah Martin. Now, on the spectrum of college basketball, Duke was the team that I watched the most this most recent season, 2025 championship season. Duke was the team that I watched the most. Then a team that I didn't watch a lot, so on the opposite end, was South Carolina. Florida, on the other hand, is somewhere in the middle. I occasionally caught some Florida Gators games. And Elijah Martin definitely stood out to me. He stood out to me as a no nonsense, go get him type of guy. So I'm very happy that the Raptors picked him. I think that gives us tremendous, tremendous depth at the point guard position. And with Elijah Martin's wingspan, he might be able to switch over to the two at times. But realistically, the way I'm seeing it, he's more of a point guard on the NBA level. And the Raptors need that. Emmanuel quickly gets injured a lot. Jamal Shed, he's got a lot of heart, but it takes guys like him a little while to really figure out just how to be effective. And when I say guys like him, I mean guys who had to really work on their shot, guys who are undersized as point guards. It takes them, sometimes it can take them a while to find their footing on an NBA level. And again, Elijah Martin is also undersized too, because 6'2" is, it's not totally undersized, but it's like, you're really pushing the margins as a 6'2", even as a point guard in the modern age. 6'2" as a point guard, you're pushing the margins, but he does make up for that in that wingspan. I think his wingspan is like 6'6" or 6'7". Don't quote me fully on his wingspan. Feel free to look that up on your own time and correct me in the comment section about that. But yeah, with Elijah Martin, I like him as an addition to this team. I just think that, if quickly goes down, the Raptors are really situated to have a next man up mentality at the point guard position. And this is the thing, having a next man up mentality at the point guard position is incredibly important. Incredibly important. Okay? Point guard, the point guard is like the head of the dragon. So if you cut the head off the dragon, it's slain. Whenever a team typically loses its point guard, that's a team that typically loses its way. We saw it in the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton, what the Halley himself, he caught that injury, and you know, the Pacers looked lost in the sauce during that game seven. It became very clear that they were not going to win. They tried to hold on for a half, but by the time the third quarter started, it was like, okay, OKC's getting the chip. Why was it so easy in the second half in particular? Because the point guard is the head of the dragon. So you cannot just lose your point guard and think that things are going to be chill, right? Going back even further, using a retroactive Raptors example. When the Raptors won this 2019 championship, okay, the 2019 championship that the Raptors won, they had a lot of point guard depth. Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, Jeremy Lin. Keep in mind, people might not think too much of Jeremy Lin anymore because he had the peak of Linsanity and then the valleys of NBA purgatory, right? But if Jeremy Lin or a comparable talent is your third string point guard, and you got two other strings above that at point guard, you're an amazing team at the point guard spot, right? So looking at it this year, we got Quickly. Hopefully, Quickly stays healthy. Hopefully, Quickly has that motivation to prove himself. He goes out there and does it. Then you got Jamal Shed. He's going to have another year of NBA experience under his belt. He's going to have another year of figuring out his niche at not only at his position, but with his body in the NBA. And then you got Young Bull, Elijah Martin, athletic, hungry. So, erring on the side of optimism, I like what the Raptors are doing at the point guard spot. I genuinely do. Uh, that being said, um, when it comes to what the Raptors have done overall, I am content with the offseason thus far. I know the Raptors, they signed that I can't even remember his name right now, but they signed that floor spacing center from the San Antonio Spurs. A quick little side note. I like the trade relationship that the Raptors in recent NBA history, circa the Kawhi Leonard deal up until now. I like the trade relationship that the Raptors have got going on with the Spurs. I think it's pretty healthy, and I think we've been able to ascertain some healthy assets over the years from the Spurs. And I like a lot of the Spurs guys that have come over to the Raptors in recent Raptors history. I find that they're adept at being system guys, right? So yeah, I do like that dynamic, but yeah, at the center position, they signed that floor spacing center. I think he'll be good for creating scoring opportunities, whether you insert him in the starting in the well, not definitively in the starting lineup, but you can have him play alongside some of the starters in various critical junctures where you're trying to gain that floor spacing. So that can work there. Also, he can space the floor to kind of get some bench scoring going on and make it easier for the bench guys to score too. And then obviously signing Jakob Poeltl was a big deal. Jakob Poeltl, his value can't be understated. Jakob Poeltl is a serviceable starting center in the NBA, and regardless of what you think about his game objectively, and again, of course, there's definitely statistical arguments for Jakob Poeltl objectively. Of course, that goes without saying. You don't need me to reference all of that. He is usually a net positive when he's on the floor for this team, so can't really complain there. But at the same time, with the Jakob Poeltl situation, he is somebody who I am very pleased that the Raptors have re-signed. I think we're definitely going to need him in order to round out this roster. And I'm glad that the Raptors have really seen the importance over the past 3 seasons in particular of we need a center. There's no non-center option for this team. So the fact that we have Jakob Poeltl to be a matchup against Embiid when Embiid's healthy and Embiid returns, to be a matchup against Nikola Jokic. I'm not gonna lie, both of those aforementioned players, they're gonna kill Poeltl on the matchup, right? But it's not so much that Poeltl has to equivocate what they're doing, right? We're not expecting that of Poeltl, but we're expecting Poeltl rather to mitigate the harm that or the damage rather that those opposing centers are doing to our squad. And I think Pirtle's the perfect guy to mitigate that and be a net positive out there on the floor for the Raptors. So me personally, I think this is a solid off season thus far. I know a lot of people are kind of disappointed. We didn't get Kevin Durant, we didn't get Giannis, but one thing you got to keep in mind, like not getting Kevin Durant, that's perfectly fine. Kevin Durant, what is he like? 37 years old. What do you want? You want to trade all this youth for KD? KD can ball. He still can ball. But do you really want to trade all this youth for KD? Yo, this man's been cooked, bro. He's been cooked. He got cooked on Phoenix, and I don't even. What even? Did they even make the play? Like, was Kevin Durant even in this year's playoffs? I don't even. No, I'm pretty sure he wasn't. Right. So what are we doing here? Right. Like, what are we doing? Right. Him being on Houston. Okay, Houston. They got a little roster going on. they got enough talent to where having an aging vet on their squad for maybe a couple years, that might that might help them. The Raptors, we got something special here, man. Like even with this starting lineup, like I can just feel it. RJ Barrett, I think he's gonna improve his shooting. So RJ Barrett at the two, quickly at the one, Brandon Ingram at the three. Brandon Ingram's gonna give us that mid-range game that we've been missing in the half court. Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is gonna really get into that point forward archetype. I've been saying it for the past 2 years. This is the season that he epitomizes that point forward archetype. It's going to happen this season. And then Turtle rounds things out at the five. And then I like what we got going on the bench, right? Jamal Shed, Elijah Martin, Mogs, Grady Dick. We got something special here. Just got to find a way to make it work. Whew. All right. Well, with that being said, though, Vegas Summer League is coming up soon. So I'm looking to see what's gonna happen for the Las Vegas Summer League in the NBA. Definitely gonna keep a close eye out on the Raptors bench. Obviously, I know that Summer League is not a true hallmark of potential in terms of its ability to be transferable to an NBA regular season. But I just want to see how the young guys get their run in. That's all I'm looking for. And I definitely will be coming out with an episode post Summer League to share more of my thoughts on who I think is making the Raptors roster, who I think is looking good on Summer League. So check that out. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 20 of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. Um, this is your host who knows the most, Scholar Baller. Uh, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. We're a small channel, but we're growing. And if you want to see more of what we're doing, definitely check. There should be a video either right here or right here. I don't even know where to play it, but there's definitely a video coming up, or the video that I posted about the channel update. Check that to see a little bit more about the direction of this channel moving forward, because this podcast, it's been going strong for 20 episodes. It's survived a lot of life events, but this podcast is just one facet of what we're doing at this channel. So if you want to hear a little bit about what's over the horizon and what's coming for this channel, and just hear a pinch of some of the big plans, please check out that channel update video that I dropped at the start of the summer. Um, but with that being said, again, like, comment, subscribe. Your support means so much. Sayin, it's a Raptors Ting Ehh.